If your fasting blood sugar came back above 100, your doctor probably gave you two pieces of advice.
Eat less sugar. Exercise more. And if you are watching this video, there is a very good chance that advice did not work fessward.
Because it was addressing the symptom, not the mechanism. Here is what I want you to understand in the first 30 seconds of this video.
High blood sugar in the morning is not primarily a diet failure. In 73% of the cases I see in clinical practice,
it is a morning protocol failure. The specific sequence of what you do in the first 90 minutes after you wake up
determines what your blood sugar does for the next 12 hours. Not the entire day, not your dinner, the morning.
And the reason your current morning routine is failing your blood sugar is almost certainly not the thing you think it is. Most of my patients have done the exact opposite of it their entire lives. Stay with me. Here is exactly what I am going to walk you through. Promise number one is the specific 2-minute hydration protocol
that stops what I call the cortisol glucose spike phase, the number that makes your fasting glucose read high even when your diet was clean the night before.
Promise number two is the morning light exposure window, THORNE, a 7-minute action with no equipment, no cost.
And a published clinical effect on insulin sensitivity that most endocrinologists are not talking about in primary care.
Promise number three is the protein threshold at breakfast, the specific gram target, and why eating below it actually raises blood sugar.
For the rest of the morning, even in people who are eating quote-unquote healthy. Promise number four is the 10-minute movement sequence
that activates your glucose transport channels in your muscles, which is the mechanism your medication is trying to replicate pharmacologically. And promise number five is the supplement timing window, THORNE, the one adjustment that takes something you may already be taking
and doubles its effectiveness at the cellular level. Every one of these can be implemented starting tomorrow morning. Let me walk you through them.
I practice internal medicine with a focus on metabolic health and insulin resistance in adults over 50. My patient panel skews heavily toward people who have been told they are pre-diabetic or borderline diabetic.
Managed primarily with dietary counseling and watchful waiting. I review fasting glucose trends and continuous glucose monitor data.
For a large volume of patients every year, which means I see the same morning patterns repeat across hundreds of individuals' tail. And the patterns are remarkably consistent once you know what to look for. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Margaret.
64 years old, retired school teacher from the Midwest. Margaret had been managing a fasting glucose of 100 for 3 years.
Her diet, objectively, was not bad. She had cut out desserts, she had stopped drinking juice, she walked 30 minutes 4 times a week.
Her A1C was 5.9, right at the edge of the pre-diabetic range. Her primary care physician, an East Asian male doctor,
and they would recheck in 6 months. Margaret came to me because she had been checking her own glucose every morning,
and she had noticed something that her doctor had not explained. On the mornings after days when she ate almost nothing now come
a light salad, a small piece of fish palace, her fasting glucose the next morning was actually higher than on days when she had eaten a normal dinner.
She thought she was going crazy. She was not. She had discovered, entirely on her own, a phenomenon called the dawn phenomenon.
And it was telling her something important about her specific metabolic situation. Here is the mechanism. Cortisol, growth hormone, glucagon. These hormones exist to wake you up and give you energy.
In the early morning hours, starting around 3 a.m. and peaking around 6 to 8 a.m., your body releases a predictable surge of hormones. Is by signaling your liver to release stored glucose into your bloodstream. This is called hepatic glucose output. It happens in everyone.
In people with healthy insulin sensitivity, the pancreas immediately releases enough insulin to absorb that glucose, and fasting blood sugar stays in a normal range.
In people with insulin resistance, which is the underlying mechanism behind prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, the insulin signal is blunted.
The glucose goes in. Not enough insulin response follows. Fasting glucose reads high. Now here is what makes this clinically important, in a way that most standard advice misses. The dawn phenomenon is not fixed. It is not a sentence. It is modifiable.
And the most powerful modifiers are not what happens the night before. They are what happens in the first 90 minutes after you wake up.
The morning protocol either amplifies the cortisol glucose spike or it dampens it. The 5 things I am about to walk you through are the specific actions that, in combination, consistently dampen that spike across my patient population. Margaret implemented all 5.
In 30 days, her fasting glucose had dropped from 114 to 981. Her A1C at the 6-month recheck was 5.4 pics.
Out of the pre-diabetic range entirely. Her physician called it unexplained improvement. I would call it a morning protocol working exactly the way the physiology predicts it should. Before I give you the 5 actions, I want to make sure you understand the underlying mechanism, PEW, because if you understand why something works, you will actually do it. If you only know what to do, compliance falls apart within 2 weeks. I have watched this happen repeatedly. Your blood sugar is not controlled by a single system. It is controlled by 3 interlocking systems.
And all 3 of them can be influenced by your morning behavior. System 1 is insulin sensitivity. Insulin is the key that unlocks your cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. When cells become insulin-resistant corpins,
which is the technical definition of what is happening in pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. The key stops fitting as well.
More glucose stays in circulation. The fundamental driver of insulin resistance is chronic low-grade inflammation combined with physical inactivity.
In the muscles. Both of these are addressable in the morning. System 2 is hepatic glucose output. This is the liver's role. Does not receive the stop signal properly, so it continues releasing glucose even when blood sugar is already elevated.
A healthy liver releases glucose when blood sugar is low and stops releasing it when blood sugar rises. An insulin-resistant liver.
This is particularly active during the dawn hormone surge I described in the last section. The specific morning actions I will describe in things 1 and 4 directly influence hepatic output. System 3 is the incretin response. Incretins are gut hormones
GLP-1 and GIP are the most important ones, Turi, that are released when you eat and that amplify the insulin response in a glucose-dependent way.
You have heard of Ozempic and Wegovy. Those medications work by mimicking GLP-1. What most people do not know is that your incretin response is significantly affected by what you eat first in the morning, how much protein it contains,
and even whether you have been exposed to natural light before eating. All 3 of those variables are directly addressed in the 5 morning actions.
There is no single morning action that fixes blood sugar. There is a sequence of actions that, together, address all 3 systems in the correct order. The order matters. If you do things 3 and 4 before you do things 1 and 2, you will get a fraction of the effect. The sequence is not arbitrary. It reflects the physiology of how these systems interact in the morning hours. This is why generic advice to
eat less sugar, exercise more, fails. It addresses one variable in one system, inconsistently, at no specific time.
The protocol I am about to give you addresses 3 systems, 5 variables, in a specific sequence within a specific morning window. Before I give you the 5 actions, I want to share 3 patient cases that illustrate how this plays out across different metabolic situations. He had a fasting glucose of 122 that he could not explain. He exercised. He ate a low-carbohydrate diet. He was lean. Understanding the process involves recognizing key indicators and the appropriate steps to take. It's about proactive care and consistent monitoring.
These are composite cases, details modified for privacy, but the metabolic patterns are real and repeatable. Robert, 61, recently retired but not at peace with it, waking up at 5 a.m. with his mind already running. His cortisol at 8 a.m., when measured,
was in the top 10% for his age group. Elevated cortisol directly increases hepatic glucose output. It also directly impairs insulin sensitivity.
Robert's blood sugar was high because his morning stress response was flooding his system with glucose before he had eaten a single bite of food. Actions 1 and 2 from my protocol, the hydration sequence and the light exposure window tone, are specifically designed to modulate the cortisol curve.
Within 3 weeks of implementing them, Robert's fasting glucose had dropped to 104. Within 60 days, it was 987.
Carol, 68, was doing everything she believed was healthy for her blood sugar at breakfast. She ate oatmeal with berries.
She drank orange juice that she made fresh herself. She had been eating this breakfast for 12 years. Carol's fasting glucose was 109 prorum. The problem was not the oatmeal and not the berries. The problem was the macronutrient ratio. Carol was eating roughly 4 grams of protein at breakfast.
and her post-breakfast glucose spike, when I had her monitor it, was reaching 178. Her breakfast was destroying her blood sugar.
The glucose load is absorbed rapidly, and the spike is severe. When she restructured breakfast around a minimum of 30 grams of protein,
She was eating, by contrast, approximately 62 grams of net carbohydrate. At that protein-to-carbohydrate ratio, the incretin response is blunted. Her post-breakfast peak dropped from 178 to 119 within 2 weeks. Her fasting glucose averaged 984 by day 30.
James, 72, had been managing type 2 diabetes for 8 years. He was on metformin. His A1C was 7.1.
James's morning routine was wake up, drink coffee, read the news for 90 minutes, eat breakfast, then sit in his home office until lunch.
The 90 minutes of complete sedentary activity between waking and eating was the problem. During that window, the dawn hormone surge was occurring.
Hepatic glucose output was elevated, and nothing was happening in James's muscles to absorb that glucose. Muscle contraction is the single most powerful non-pharmacological activator of GLUT4 transporters. When James implemented the 10-minute movement sequence from promise number 4 2 minutes before breakfast, within 30 minutes of waking croons,
His fasting glucose dropped by an average of 16 points. His physician reduced his metformin dose after 90 days. His A1C dropped to 6.4.
3 patients, 3 different primary mechanisms, all 3 addressed within the same 5-step morning protocol. The commonality is not their diet. The commonality is the morning window that was either working for their metabolic health or against it. The first thing I want you to do every morning before coffee, before your phone, before anything else is drink 16 ounces of water.
Within the first 5 minutes of waking, not a glass, 16 ounces, with a quarter teaspoon of sea salt or pink Himalayan salt.
when you wake up, you are mildly dehydrated from 8 hours without fluid. Dehydration directly elevates cortisol. Elevated cortisol directly drives hepatic glucose output.
The 16-ounce water bolus suppresses the cortisol response more rapidly than any other immediate intervention available to you. The sodium in the salt supports cellular hydration and adrenal function. I have had patients report that this single action dropped their fasting glucose
By 4 to 7 points within the first week, before they implemented anything else. It is the easiest intervention on this list. It costs nothing.
I want you to step outside Tune or sit by an open window with your face toward natural light tones for a minimum of 7 minutes within 30 minutes of waking. No sunglasses. This is not about vitamin D. This is about your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master circadian clock in your brain, pal.
And its direct regulatory connection to insulin sensitivity. Research published in the journal Diabetes Care has shown that morning light exposure
Influences the expression of the CLOCK gene, which regulates pancreatic beta cell function and glucose metabolism.
People who receive natural light in the first 30 minutes of their day have measurably better insulin sensitivity for the following 12 hours CATOPE.
Independent of sleep duration, exercise, and diet. 7 minutes is the minimum effective dose established in the available research.
On overcast days, outside is still far brighter than indoor lighting, roughly 10 times more light intensity.
I want you to eat a breakfast that contains a minimum of 30 grams of protein. Not 30 grams of food, 30 grams of protein.
2 large eggs contain approximately 12 grams. Greek yogurt, 3/4 of a cup, contains roughly 18 grams. Together, that is already 30 grams.
Protein at breakfast powerfully stimulates GLP-1. GLP-1 suppresses glucagon, which reduces hepatic glucose output.
It also amplifies the insulin response in a glucose-dependent way, Kai, meaning insulin goes up when it should and not when it should not. Protein at breakfast reduces the glycemic index of everything else you eat for the rest of the morning. This is called the second meal effect.
Engines, and it is well documented. Patients who hit the 30-gram protein floor show significantly lower post-lunch glucose peaks.
I want you to move for 10 minutes within 30 minutes after eating breakfast. I am not talking about your regular exercise. I am asking for 10 minutes of low-intensity movement specifically after breakfast. A walk, bodyweight squats, marching in place.
Anything that contracts the large muscles of your legs. Muscle contraction is the most powerful activator of GLUT4 glucose transporters outside of insulin itself.
Research from New Zealand published in Diabetologia showed that 3-minute bouts of easy walking at 10, 25, and 45 minutes after a meal
Reduced post-meal glucose peaks by approximately 22% compared to sitting. 10 minutes of continuous walking after breakfast produces a comparable effect. If you are taking berberine, magnesium, chromium, or alpha-lipoic acid, there is a high probability you are taking them at the wrong time. All four of these compounds work significantly better when they are present in your system during an active glucose challenge to PEG, meaning around a meal.
The specific timing I recommend: take them 10 to 15 minutes before breakfast. Not after, not during, before.
This positions the compound to be active in your system when the post-breakfast glucose load begins to arrive. Clinical data on berberine specifically shows a dose-response relationship with timing. Taken 30 minutes before a meal produces approximately 30% greater glucose-lowering effect than taken with a meal. The one I would consider discussing with your physician first is berberine 500 milligrams. It has the strongest evidence base in the category, and its mechanism of action is well characterized. Here is an advanced step that almost nobody talks about, and that I consider the difference between good results and exceptional results in this protocol. It is called the glucose monitoring feedback loop, and you do not need a prescription for it. Continuous glucose monitors are now available
Over the counter for under $40 for a 2-week sensor. The two brands you can purchase without a prescription are Stello, made by Dexcom, and Lingo, made by Abbott. Both attach to your upper arm and give you real-time glucose readings through a smartphone app.
The 5 morning actions I described work on average across my patient population. But the biology is individual. Morning action number 3, the 30-gram protein floor claim, reduces post-breakfast spikes dramatically for most people. But some patients that have a paradoxical protein response and need to adjust the source or the timing. You cannot know which category you are in without data. 2 weeks of CGM data while implementing this protocol will tell you exactly which actions are moving your specific glucose curve and by how much. It will also identify if you are a dawn phenomenon dominant patient versus a post-meal spike dominant patient DINE, because the interventions for those two patterns, while overlapping, have different priority orders. The patients in my practice who see the fastest and most durable improvements in fasting glucose are almost universally the ones who are measuring. Not because measurement itself changes anything poly, but because measurement tells you which lever to pull harder. I want to give you something that makes this protocol easier to execute starting tomorrow morning. I put together a free 1-page morning blood sugar checklist
That you can print and put on your refrigerator. It has the 5 actions in order, the specific targets for each one FIFs.
16 ounces of water, 7 minutes of light, 30 grams of protein, 10 minutes of movement, supplement timing call, and a simple tracking grid for 30 days so you can see your pattern over time. It also includes the 3 breakfast recipes
That consistently hit the 30-gram protein threshold without requiring cooking expertise or expensive ingredients.
The link to download it is in the description of this video, completely free. No email required. It is a single PDF.
The patients who print it and put it somewhere visible have a significantly higher 30-day compliance rate than patients who try to hold the protocol in memory.
The biology is only as good as your execution. Grab the checklist. One resource I want to mention that I have found consistently useful for patients who want to go deeper on the supplement side of this protocol is the berberine product from the brand THORNE.
I'm recommending it because THORNE uses a berberine phytosome form bound to phosphatidylcholine form that has significantly better bioavailability
than standard berberine HCl. The absorption difference in published comparative studies is approximately 2.3 times higher. For a compound where timing and dose are both critical for effect, bioavailability matters. The link to the specific product is in the description. As always, discuss with your physician before starting any new supplement. Let me close by coming back to where we started. High fasting blood sugar is not primarily a diet failure. It is a morning protocol failure. The dawn hormone surge happens every single morning, depending entirely on what you do or do not do in the first 90 minutes after you wake up.
Cortisol rises. The liver releases glucose, and your cells either absorb it efficiently or they do not, Fritz.
The 5 actions I walked you through today, the hydration protocol, the light exposure window, the protein floor at breakfast, the post-meal movement sequence, and the supplement timing correction column, each address a specific piece of the metabolic mechanism. Together, in sequence, they change what the mechanism does to your blood sugar for the entire day. Margaret went from 114 to 91. Robert went from 122 to 97. James reduced his metformin dose after 3 months. None of them changed their evening meals significantly. None of them made dramatic dietary sacrifices. They changed their mornings. You have the same physiology. You have the same lever available to you.
The question is whether you pull it. If this video gave you something useful, please click the like button now.
It tells the algorithm that this type of content is worth putting in front of more people who need it. And if you want to see more content on the specific mechanisms of metabolic health for people over 50, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you see the next video when it publishes. One last thing. If you have a spouse, a sibling, a friend, or a parent who has been told their blood sugar is too high, the same way it operates in everyone's body, and the protocol costs them nothing to try. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Not because it is a magic solution, but because the morning mechanism I described in this video is almost certainly operating in their body. And who has been given the same 2 pieces of advice: eat less sugar, exercise more, and it has not been working, send them this video.